Okay, you're ready to go, Mayor.
All right. Welcome everybody to our South Weaver City Council meeting of April 28th. It is 6:02 p.m. and we'd like to welcome you all. All our council members are in attendance here. And before we start with the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer, we kind of had a little friendly competition that some participated in and some haven't, but we'd just like to draw attention to the ones that have. So I think if we start, Blair, do you have something? We're doing a background competition. You got to turn on your sound, Blair. Turn on your sound.
Hey, no laughing. You got to get a little more experienced at this. No, I do not.
You don't have one?
No, I was changing water. Sorry.
That's all right. That's an important duty. So, okay, then I think Haley, let's put you up front and center.
Okay, well, I'm in the Leslie Knope's office.
Nice.
And this right there is a picture of Larry Bird. And I don't really know who that lady is, but I'm pretty sure those are South Weaver residents at Old Fort Road or something. So that's my office.
Nice.
That's awesome. Thank you, Haley. I think Quinn has got his. Oh, there we go. Quinn, there we go.
Just a generic relaxing on the beach, that's all.
Oh, that makes me jealous. Great background, Quinn. Let's see, who is next to Quinn? It would be Angie.
So I'm on my kid's school laptop and I can't get it to download. Sadly. So this is what we have again.
Well, it's nice. You could tell us about those plaques on the wall.
Oh yeah, these are my daughter. This is her room. So, and there's not much to say. Just like it.
All right. Thank you, Angie. Okay, we've got Wayne.
First time I've been over 6 foot tall.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Somebody tell Blair he's on mute.
Blair.
Blair.
You're on
My
mute, Blair.
space bar is not working. Yes, I'm coming for you.
That's awesome, Wade. Thank you. Okay, mine needs a little introduction. You know, a city considers itself very fortunate if it has 3 good council members. If it has 4, it's like almost unheard of. And 5 is, well, nearly impossible to get. So how does South Weaver fare in that respect? Well, I'm going to show you in my background. So here it is.
Oh, nice. Quinn, check out the outfit.
Very good.
I realize I worked out that much.
This is good. This is good stuff. I like it.
And Wayne, I think you might be over 6 foot there too.
Yeah.
And you're probably wondering what they're all looking at. Let me show you what they're all looking at here.
Oh. Bravo.
Is that the same sun that's in Monty Python and the Holy Grail? I mean, holy smokes.
No, it's
Teletubbies.
Teletubbies.
Oh no. Oh no.
There you guys are awesome.
I had to mute myself because of the language.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
All right, well, that was fun. Thank you everyone for participating that did. This was kind of a late notice, although I do remember at our last council meeting, we talked about this, so that's why I was prepared.
That's awesome.
All right, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilwoman Alberts, and then we'll have a prayer by Councilman Halverson.
Okay, stand and repeat the pledge after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, as we come before thee this evening, we're thankful that we can meet together as staff and council, and we're grateful for the city and the country which we live in at this time. And so, Father, we ask for a special blessing to be upon our emergency personnel and our military, and especially our healthcare workers around the country, that they will be watched over and cared for through this time of need. We're again thankful for all that we have, and we ask for a special blessing to be with us this night as we discuss the needs of our city. And we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right, thank you, Councilwoman Alberts and Councilman Halverson. Appreciate that. So our first item is a coronavirus update, and I'll give what I have, and then Dave, if you have anything to add to this. There's one case confirmed in South Weaver City. I know it used to be 2, but one was a false positive apparently. So we just have one case right now that we know of. Governor Herbert is giving an updated directive on or before May 1st, which is this Friday. And so we'll be watching to hear what he has to say, and we'll give you more information when we receive it. But we just want you to continue to practice social distancing and wear face coverings in interactions that take place within a 6-foot distance of others. So Dave, do you have anything to add to that?
The only thing I have to add is there's somewhat of an anticipation that the governor will announce a change from red risk status to orange risk status. We won't know that for sure until he announces, but if he does announce that we are shifting to an orange risk status, there's an entire list of measures that would be taken and restrictions that would be in place in an orange status. We've already had conversations internally as staff with those that it would most affect. For example, recreation center, youth programs, things like that, that there would be potentially opportunity for somewhat of a soft opening for the rec center or youth programs and things. So we anticipate that. We're preparing for that. If we do go into orange, then we would make sure that we open up in the appropriate ways and follow all of the different restrictions and guidelines that would be put in place. If we remain in red, then obviously we'll continue with the status quo as it is right now. But we are anticipating when those changes take place, if not now, then when they do, and are already preparing for that internally.
All right, thank you. Okay, public comment, just want to remind you all that all comments must be submitted by email to publiccomment@southweavercity.com, and they must be received prior to meeting time, start time, and then subject line should include the meeting date, item number, or general comment, first and last name, and comments without the first and last name will not be included in that record. So I think you're all aware of that by now. Okay, so our next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of March 31st, the check register for March, and the budget to actual for February. Are there any comments or questions on the agenda? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Councilwoman Petty. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councilman Soderquist. Okay, any further comment? Then we'll have A roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion carries. Let's move to item number 6, which is the Public Works truck purchase. This is an item that was continued from our last meeting on April 14th. Public Works needs an additional vehicle and the city budgeted $35,000 to purchase a truck. In anticipation of the park season, Public Works is ready to purchase the truck. The purchase price of the vehicle selected off state contract is $32,778. The process for purchasing vehicles through state contracts has recently changed, and a second quote is no longer required. The current state contract wording is a secondary quote process is no longer required. This contract portfolio is now considered a multiple award, and each contract is based on established terms and prices submitted. All contract numbers shall remain the same. To use these contracts, eligible users will simply need to make a best value decision on a case-by-case basis on which dealer they would like to work with. They will make this decision by reviewing each dealership's discount percentage and MSRP document. They may get quotes, however, that are not but they are not required to. An eligible user simply needs to review the contract and make a best value decision on which contract to utilize, taking into consideration a variety of factors, including but not limited to geographical distance from location, price, warranties, service operation, availability of vehicles, etc. The following procedure was followed in obtaining the attached quote for a Ford F-350. Mark Larson contacted Young Automotive Group, who has one of the state contracts. Young Automotive Group represents Chevy, Ford, Subaru, Hyundai, Buick, GMC, Dodge, and Jeep. Mark told the representative Shane that he needed a truck that is a minimum of 3/4 ton, white, single cab, has a tow package, long bed, some upgrades so it is resellable, must be on the state contract, and is as cheap as he can get it. Mark Larson did not specify which dealer or which brand. The quote was out of the Morgan store, which has the best rebates. This is how the best value decision was made. Are there comments or questions on this? Okay. Seeing none or hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Public Works truck purchase.
Well, I think
Don't
I think the reason this thing was pushed to today was we were all asking why we didn't get more quotes. And I think the memo and the information we have today clarified that is because of the state contract, we're not required to do that anymore. It's already done that for us. So
Right.
I would make the motion that we approve the truck purchase.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second that.
second that.
Too late.
I think Wayne beat you to the punch. Okay, any further? Wow. Any further comments or questions? Then we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 Hi.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. The next item is the general plan timeline. The city council previously determined to postpone the general plan second draft public review period and open houses originally scheduled for April due to the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions and response measures. The decision at the time was to revisit the circumstances of the response during the April 28th meeting of the city council to determine an updated timeline for adopting an updated general plan. The council also requested that a group of residents have the chance to preview the survey questions prior to the next public review and comment period in order to get a resident perspective on the second draft survey questions. This beta test group of 12 residents were sent the survey questions and 9 returned feedback, which has been attached to the packet for the council's consideration as the survey questions are finalized. Comments and questions? Haley. Oh, Councilwoman Alberts.
I go by Haley. That works great. I guess we're asking. I was hoping we would have a little bit more clarification at this point in time, if we would be able to meet in groups of more than 10 or 20, or, and listen to the governor's talk or the press conference today, and he didn't really specify. So I don't know that, do we have any more clarification of when or if we can meet as a public body, even if we're able to social distance, or do we have any insight on that yet?
So that is a city decision. The orange phase that the governor may propose or may not allows 20 people, I believe, to congregate. I talked to a bunch of mayors yesterday. We had a meeting, and some of them have started their regular meetings and just have someone at the door to let people in to comment. And some are still just doing online. It really is probably a council decision, but it should be based on what the county and the state are saying in some respect. So.
Okay. Well, I guess, can we ask how we feel as a council doing an open house in May and limiting numbers, or how we feel about that?
Okay, anyone want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'll chime in. Sorry, Quinn, you got your hand up, so I'll back off if that's
No,
okay.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't pull that up.
My gut tells me that we're going to see a transition in May to a reduced quarantine effort. I think that's what you're going to hear from the governor in the coming days. At least from my business, we're looking to return people to work, but we're going to be more staggered and practicing different distancing measures. My gut's telling me we could probably begin an open house in May, and maybe we ought to work towards that, maybe toward the end of May. I wouldn't want to postpone it much longer, but May, June timeframe, I think would be appropriate to, given what the governor's going to talk to us, make some decisions about open houses and move forward. But I wouldn't move this process any further until we know when the open houses are going to be. We did receive some comments back from the Planning Commission suggesting that maybe we just put it back to them and have them not redraft, but update whatever that document is. And when that comes back out, it might be in a better position to have the open houses move forward again. But I think it's sooner rather than later, Councilman Roberts.
Okay, Councilman Soderquist.
So first of all, I'd just like to thank those people that reviewed it. Looked like several of them were very thoughtful and went through in a lot of detail in summarizing their take on the questionnaire and whatnot. But I agree with Councilman Windsor. If we can do it safely, I would push it towards the end of May. I'd rather do it sooner than later, but obviously retain the option to postpone if needed, depending upon how things are at that point.
Okay. So if it does move to orange, Dave, could you tell us how we might hold, considering that there could be 20 people congregating 6 feet apart each, how would an open house look that incorporated those rules?
I think that does give us some flexibility. Not as much as maybe we'd hope for, but without having an exact answer right now of what that would look like, we could, as staff, put together some ideas with council input, obviously, or planning commission input to determine what format that would look like. It still would have to include some type of staggering, some type of scheduling. I would hate for 100 people to show up and we'd have to tell 80 of them to wait outside until people left the building, something like that. I think scheduling a window or a time would probably be the best in that regard, but there's not really a firm answer to that yet of exactly how we would do it. I don't know if 20 is the magic number, or if we would need 50 to be the magic number, or if there is a magic number. I do think there are ways to gather feedback and have an open house type conversation, even in small groups. We would just have to organize how those small groups get together.
Okay, Councilwoman Alberts, you had some.
I just had a couple of questions that maybe Dave, you can clarify on. So if we move into orange on the 1st, are we anticipating to stay at least in orange for at least 2 weeks before we could move any further? Is that the correct thing? And
Yes,
Sorry.
definitely.
Okay. So, and then what you said about that's the city's choice. So if we go into orange and the limit is 20, do we have as a city the ability to do more than 20, or do we have to stay 20, or do we have to stay under the governor's directive?
I personally think it'd be wise to stay under it, because I think 20 is high in the situation that we're in. A lot of this is driven by economics, and so I think we ought to at least limit it to 20. That's my opinion. Councilwoman Petty, did you have a comment?
I'm trying to make sure I say this appropriately. I feel like our governor's let us down a little bit. So my humble opinion, I have no problem holding an open house whenever, because I feel like we've waited and been patient enough. So that's just me. So whenever the council decides that we proceed, I am in full support.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Halverson.
I guess I was just curious a little bit if anyone agreed with the Planning Commission's comment that we got about holding off and just waiting till the 1st quarter of next year. Was basically the comment that we got back from the Planning Commission, and letting them take it and run with it, and then having our open houses and making a vote on it. But part of me agrees with that and part of me doesn't. I mean, we've gone a long way down this road, but Angie, I will disagree a little bit. I'm sorry, but I don't want to go from 0 to, as a company, and it's more from a liability standpoint. As a company, we are not doing anything until June of more than 10 in a room. And so I think going to 20 right off the bat's excessive. I mean, we're all going to be wearing face masks because that's going to be the recommendation, I guarantee you, through the rest of the summer anyway, in groups larger than 10, or if you're anywhere. So I think those are things we need to keep in mind, but I'm curious what the council has, if they have any opinion on the Planning Commission's recommendation.
Okay, maybe before Councilwoman Alberts, does anyone have an opinion on when we proceed? And maybe Councilwoman Alberts, you do.
Well, I mean, when we proceed, I was just going to respond to my thoughts on the Planning Commission email. Is that what you're referring to, or did?
Yes.
Okay. So I was hoping to hear from Doug before we had this meeting, but I didn't see anything come in yet. I was a little confused with the Planning Commission's email. I feel that we're in the process of amending the general plan, and we're seeking further public input, which when I read the code, we had the opportunity as a council to deny it, approve it, or amend it. And in my opinion, we're in the stage of amending it, and due to discussions with the council and the Planning Commission, we needed further input from the public, and that's what we're seeking. I was a little confused because in one hand, he mentioned that, you know, we spent so much time and money on it, but I was confused as why we would essentially start all over again. That would be more time and money on it. So I wasn't really clear on why he felt that way, and was hoping for a little bit further clarification. I think that it would be wise definitely to finish the survey so that that public feedback can go back to the Planning Commission as an amendment to their original draft that they sent to us personally.
Thank you. Dave, I know you've spoken with Doug. Do you want to let us in,
Yeah.
enlighten us a little?
You bet. I've had conversation with Doug and had a little bit of a back and forth email exchange with him as well for clarification on the issue. One of the things that Planning Commission raised was what the state law says about general plan process, as well as what our city code says about general plan process. And the crux of it is that by code, the Planning Commission recommends updates of the general plan or recommends a general plan to the city council, and the city council then either adopts it, rejects it, or makes amendments and changes at that point. So the process that we went through is that the Planning Commission, starting in February 2019, reviewed section by section with the intent of providing a recommendation to the city council. Like Councilwoman Albert said, we're still kind of mid-process, but there is official action that the Planning Commission will need to take to essentially recommend as an action item a general plan, and that would then forward to the city council, and the city council would have an action item to adopt the general plan. We haven't gotten to that point yet. The Planning Commission worked on the draft. They got a draft general plan ready to go. That went out for public review and comment. When that came back, or during that process, I should say, there was some feedback from the council about feeling like they were outside of the general plan update process. And once the feedback was received, we held a joint meeting to review the feedback and then discuss any potential amendments that might be made to the general plan. At that point, that meeting, that one joint meeting, turned into a series of joint meetings to review the feedback and talk through potential amendments based on that feedback. During that time period, there was discussion of perhaps doing a second iteration of public review and comment based on a second draft. And so that's where we find ourselves now. What Doug said is that ultimately it is the Planning Commission's responsibility to get essentially a finalized version of the general plan and officially adopt that, so to speak, recommend that to the city council. And then the city council, by law, would hold a public hearing on that recommendation, that recommended plan, and then take action whether to adopt, reject, or amend. So in some ways, having the council involved in discussion of ways to amend is, I wouldn't say that it is out of bounds. It's not really a problem per se, but it is a little bit unorthodox, according to Doug, that typically the city council waits until the very end of the process to then either adopt, reject, or amend. We've just had the council involved after that initial public review period. And in some ways, you can make the argument that the Planning Commission did recommend because they had worked on it for so long and got a draft in place. However, the other side of that argument is that they did not take an official action to recommend a finalized version of a plan to the city council. So ultimately, we don't need to restart the process from where we're at. We could, and this is my own personal opinion, we could continue through the second draft public review period, receive comments and feedback, and then at that point, the Planning Commission could take that feedback, do any amendments or revisions to the draft plan as it stands now, ultimately let the Planning Commission get it to the stage of a recommendation once they feel that it's in the position that they want to recommend that to the council, and then the council could perhaps re-engage at that point. I don't think that's very far off of what our plan was originally. When we had proposed our timeline that ended up being postponed here because of COVID. If you look at that timeline that was proposed, it included, after the second round of public comment, the planning commission having a final review and final say before recommending and having it go before the city council with that public hearing and final adoption and decision. So my personal feeling is that we're not too far out of line and out of step, but I can see the perspective. And if the council wants to do something a little bit differently moving forward, they have that ability. Does it need to wait until next year? That's really up for the council. That's up to the council to decide what the timeline is. There's no arbitrary deadline on this. It's all just when we want to update it. We've put a lot of time and effort into it. We've gone far down the road with public comment and public opinion. It feels to me like we're getting close to a finalized version that the planning commission could recommend, but by state law, the planning commission has the responsibility to get a general plan in a position where they feel comfortable recommending it to the city council, and the city council then would act at that point.
Okay. And I agree with Dave. We do not don't need to start back at square one. We've done a lot of review, had a lot of public comment, and it's important that we hear the public and listen to what they have to say. And I think we've done a good job as far as we have on preparing this document. And so my personal opinion is, move forward with what we're doing either now or wait maybe until next year, like Blair was suggesting. I would like to hear how the council feels about either of those. I'm torn. I would like to continue to work on this, but it would also be nice if we were able to just run things normally, have people come and not have to worry about all the measures that we'll need to take at this point with the virus. Councilman Halverson.
Well, I don't know if I really want to wait. I would like to just get it done. The sooner the better. I mean, the quarantine or whatever we want to deal with, COVID-19, has definitely put a glitch in all of this. But I kind of got a sense a little bit more that the planning commission felt that some of these decisions really should be theirs as far as the timeline and how the survey goes out and those things. I mean, that I kind of got the opinion that maybe we did overstep on that a little bit, but neither here nor there. It's done now. I just think we need to move forward, is my personal opinion, and get it done. But I do think the planning commission probably needs to take that role and lead that charge as far as deciding if the survey's right and all of those things. That's kind of that's what their job is.
Right, and my recommendation would be that we send out or do the open houses, send out the survey, and then send all that back to planning commission to be reviewed and discussed. And then when they bring a recommendation to us, then we can be coming involved again. That's my personal opinion. Councilman Windsor. Did you have something? There we go.
I gotta unmute me. I'm not used to just talking.
There we
go. Yeah, I did have something to say. I agree with what's being said. We need to move forward. I don't think we need to wait or delay it for any reason. I think when appropriate, we get this second survey out, or we strongly encourage the planning commission to follow up with a second survey. We've done a lot of the homework for them. And that second survey begins with an open house, and it could be a joint open house with the council and planning commission, or just the planning commission. But I think those two steps need to be checked off, and the planning commission can take the lead and then follow it up as stated here with a formal recommendation with a final document moving forward. And then we can take action, whichever that might be.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Petty.
I would agree with that, but also perhaps give them a deadline to have it brought back to us. Or strongly recommended deadline, as Councilman Windsor said, that we can say we need to have this process continue instead of having it, get stagnant.
All right. Hey, thank you. Councilman Soderquist.
So similar feelings as everybody else has expressed. I'm fine with it going back into the planning commission to finalize it. I'd just like to understand from them, are they wanting us to stop all of the things that we have in motion now? No open house, no survey? Because if they want us to stop that, then maybe we need to have a different discussion. But I feel like there's a lot of good information that is being brought forward and that would help them in working through their thing. And then likewise, I don't want to set April of next year as a time, maybe it takes that long, but I wouldn't want to just set that right now. I think they could do it much sooner than that. And so I would just encourage them to, keep moving forward with it, but with the input that is planned to be received over the next couple, weeks or months, whatever it is.
Okay. Councilwoman Alberts.
Yeah, I just agree with what's been said. I agree with Angie. I think we need to put a date on it. We have a lot of momentum going into this. We don't really want to lose that. If they, we have this survey just about finalized, I feel like we got great feedback from those people who participated in the survey feedback. So I think if we want to go ahead and sharpen up that feedback, and if we want to send it to planning commission, and planning commission can take all their feedback and roll with it from there. But we need to. The open houses, I feel it was beneficial to have both the planning commission and the city council at the last one. I thought that was really helpful. But obviously with COVID, that is screwing everything up. So I think whatever we do, we need to finish the participation from the citizens. We've gotten this far with them. We've told them we would do it. We need to get to that point. And if the planning commission wants to take over at that point, that is fine with me. But we do need to make sure that that gets finished, and it gets finished soon.
Okay. Thank you. It sounds like we're all in agreement, Dave, that we're ready to move forward with this. So I don't know how you want to do that, or what kind of direction we need to give you tonight in order to proceed.
What I understand is that we want to put together a plan for open houses in the late part of May as a kickoff to a second round of public review and comment. The survey is like Haley said, is almost ready to go. And so we'll definitely be able to have that ready within 3 weeks or so to start that feedback loop. So the way that I understood it is we'll, as staff, we'll work on what the format could look like for an open house. We will schedule dates for that, trying to hold that or plan on holding that at the rec center. If we only having 20 people in the room, I guess City Hall is an option, but I don't think 6 feet is an option if we have 20 people at City Hall. So that's why I would recommend the rec center is still our location, more space for boards and information and things like that. So I'll put together a plan. We'll work as staff and send that out via email to the council and include the planning commission so that they're involved in the plan for the open house. But we'll continue with the idea of open houses sometime in late May based on availability dates and schedule, and work toward that.
Okay. Thank you. All right. With that, we'll move to our next item, which is the dog park. For a brief period in 2018, the city unleashed a dog park. I made a minor edit there because it felt like we were unleashing a dog park. Right, Angie? And in the city's fenced detention basin in the cul-de-sac at 2020 East off Deer Run Drive. The park became very successful in terms of its popularity and regular use, especially during nights and weekends. The high use brought traffic, safety, noise, parking, and privacy concerns from neighbors of the park who bought homes in a quiet cul-de-sac. Although for the most part, the dog owners did a good job of keeping the park clean and looking after their animals, the city council determined the location of the park was not the right place and closed the park. The decision at the time was to look for a suitable location. During development discussions with the Harvest Park subdivision just east of the Posse Grounds on Old Fort Road, the developer agreed to fence their new detention basin in such a way that it could potentially accommodate a dog park. The development is under construction and the city council needs to determine whether it will use the detention basin as a dog park. Staff has reviewed the rules and regulations that were in place at the previous dog park, researched the characteristics of quality dog parks in other cities, and developed rules for the dog park if they choose to pursue a dog park in this location. Those rules were attached to the packet for your information. Are there comments or questions on this? Oh, Councilwoman Albers.
Is there like a map or a development plan? I don't know where this is, and I've tried to, is there something that we can kind of see where this is going exactly? I mean, I know the area somewhat-ish.
Do you have a map with that on, Dave
It may take me a second.
or
but
Brandon?
That or Brandon, do you? have the
Brandon.
ability to look for that?
Well, while they're looking, Haley, it's right next to the Posse Grounds.
Just east of,
East?
Yeah,
yes.
just east, and it's a triangular shape that you can kind of see down there now that's cleared out.
So is it on Old Fort Road?
It's on Old Fort
Yes.
Road, yes. That
Okay,
would, there'll be the sidewalk and then a grass strip, and then inside of that's a fenced in area for the dog
So-
park.
I'm assuming parking to the dog park will just be on Old Fort Road. Is that the plan?
It would be, I
actually
think,
be
at the
the
Posse
Oh,
Grounds.
it's Posse Grounds.
It's connected right to that parking lot and that little pavilion and everything.
Okay.
Yeah. Councilman Windsor.
Yeah, I appreciate the mic, Mayor. Let me start off in that I think it could be and should be a dog park, but I do have some comments with regards to the rules and regulations that were provided to us. More questions. I think we need to dig a little deeper with our rules and regulations. In no particular order, it just started out, the hours of operation were from 7 a.m. till sunset, but we probably need to qualify that in that it needs to be closed for maintenance. It is supposed to be a grassy area, and I believe it's going to have to be mowed, fertilized, and things of that nature. It also is primary purpose, which is the second point. I think the last bullet said its primary purpose is to be a dog park. Its primary purpose is a detention basin. That's why it's being built. Now, its primary function is going to be a dog park if we agree to that. But we need to make clear that its primary purpose is a detention basin. And in that, it could get inundated with stormwater and it shouldn't be used during those types of events. So I think we need some clarification on that. There's nothing in here that talked about occupancy or occupancy limits. How many dogs could this park occupy at any one time? What's the safe occupancy? Is it 10? Is it 20? I don't know, but I think we should have some limits. There's a lot of statements about loss of dog privileges, dogs biting or failure to comply with the rules, but it doesn't say by who's administering that. And how does that person administering know which dog has been exiled and which dogs are allowed? I think administration wise, we should probably have some sort of registration with the city. People come down, give their name, the owner's name, address, phone number, maybe a photo of the dog. So we have some record as to who might be there. We can do some follow up, whoever does end up administering or policing the dogs. How do we manage outside uses? One of the biggest issues, positive and or negative, how you look at it, was when we had the other dog park, we got a lot of non-citizens from the city using it, people from out of the county, people from other cities, which could be a good thing, but it could also dominate the use. How do we control that? I think that's the summary of my comments. Don't have answers to most of those except for the administration one, but those are some of the things I think we need to vet out.
Okay, Councilman Halverson.
Oh, I definitely think it needs to be used as a dog park. I mean, that's the way it was set up. I think it was a great idea. I have a few concerns to address around the dog park with the developer, and maybe Brandon I can talk to him later about those, about what's getting actually cleaned up. I noticed there was some comments about trying to get some citizen help to clean up the rest of the area. And I remember specifically asking them if they were going to clean out all of the deadfall, and they said yes to that question. But that's around the dog park. But I agree with Wayne's comments on the administration of it. There was several people that have asked about, is there an easy way to do like go to the city and get a COM or a key or something? Oh, I was wondering what was going on with my screen there.
Found it.
Anyway, there's a lot of people, is there a way that we could put, and not an expensive way, I don't want to have like key cards that everybody's got to reprogram and give out codes, but is there a way to maybe somehow limit access or have someone come in and have to register with the city? That was like one of the big comments we got back from the public, is try to figure out how to somewhat limit access to it to residents and people that are willing to at least come and register with the city. I don't think we can say no one outside the city can come. We go to their parks, they go to our parks. It's kind of hard to justify that, but that would be my biggest concern, other than the rest of the development in that right around the dog park area.
Okay, thank you, Blair. Dave, can you show us on this map where the,
Yeah, can everybody see the hand moving?
Dave, I actually have the rendering version.
Oh, yeah, that'd probably be
If you
better.
would like that one.
Yep, go for it. I will stop sharing and you can.
Can everybody see that?
Yeah, that's way
Oh, yeah.
cleaner. Looks better.
that's nice.
So
So,
the green area in here would be completely fenced. These are just trails around the outside. You know, exactly where those would go is yet to be determined, but something of that nature. The idea, I think we were thinking, would be that people would park here at the posse grounds and take the trail over to the dog park area.
That may be one area we would have to paint for no parking to get them to park over in the parking lot.
Well, I think that if you were to restrict the, because it has a, you know, it needs a gate, obviously, the double gate entry. If you were to provide that entry on this side, it might just make it, you know, we can make it so that it's more convenient. But those decisions we still have to kind of work through.
All right, thank you, Brandon. Let's see. Councilman Halverson.
Sorry, I just left my hand up.
Oh, Councilwoman Alberts.
Yeah, okay, thanks for bringing this map up. I know we're gonna get comments on that parking lot in the posse grounds with horse trailers. If people from the dog park are taking up the space for the horse trailers for the posse grounds, do we have any thoughts on how to allow room for them? For both?
Okay, Councilman Halverson, did you have a comment on that?
I'm on a different computer. I can't figure out how to even put my hand down.
Okay, is there a place for overflow parking or somewhere? Can people park on roads that are adjacent, not on Old Fort Road?
Well, I would just suggest that maybe I don't know if it's okay to just wait and see what the interest level is. If parking in the posse grounds parking lot is working or not, and then address it once we can kind of see what problems are being presented, or if there are problems that are being presented.
Okay.
No?
And there's very seldom, and there's 2 or 3 horse trailer, maybe at max 1 or 2 horse trailers down there at a time. Very, very seldom do we have multiple cars down there.
So yeah, I was kind of thinking maybe if we can just even keep 2 long stalls. I mean, like it'd be 4 stalls total, but right trailer parking only. I mean, I know we don't have a ton of horse trailers down there, but as long as we leave room for 2 or 3 to be able to access that, is kind of my thought. But just a couple other thoughts. I think this is a great idea. I know there's a lot of citizens that are very excited about this and they've been very antsy to get it going. So I think it's going to be a great asset for our community. A couple of things. I agree with Wayne and Blair about the administration, the number of people. I know on our last one, from what I read about it, there was a lot of communities or cities from outside of South Weber that came to enjoy this. So I know that this will, when it closed, I remember hearing from people in Riverdale and Layton and Roy that they would come to our dog park because they don't have one. So I can anticipate we're probably going to have a lot of other community members coming outside of our city here. So I don't know how that would work with dog registration because they wouldn't be registered in our city. So just something that I consider. The only thing I could think to add to the rules, I looked at some other cities that have dog parks, no alcoholic beverages or any glass was something that I didn't see in our rules that we could probably add. And then I was wondering about signage, if we're going to put the rules that will be posted. And then if we need to post also an enter at your own risk sort of thing. I don't know about the liability issues with that. And then the other one was just, what is our matter of recourse if we're finding that people are not picking up after their pets? And do we have a plan of action for that?
Okay, thank you. All good questions. Let's continue through this and then we might go back. Councilwoman Petty, did you have comments?
Yeah, a couple, but we had at one point discussed putting perhaps a secondary gate that would be at the east end, if you could call it the east end. I don't know if that's still something we would consider, so that would be another area for people to park in. I don't know if it makes sense for us to do that or not. It would be another cost for us. I feel like our other park was so, what's the word we have been using? Self-monitored. People are very quick to point out to other people if they're not picking up after their pets because they don't want to lose their privileges. So in a sense, that will be monitored to a degree, but we still need to have a plan in place. I agree. Maybe not have them quote, register officially their pets, but have them sign the liability waiver like Wayne suggested and get a photo. So then they're, registered to a degree with our city. So we know who they are and who the dog belongs to. Because if there is a habitual problem, I think that would help Chris. I'm assuming would follow Chris for code enforcement. So I'm assuming that would help him, that we can know who it actually is.
Yeah. Thank you. Councilman Windsor.
Just a follow up, in looking at this map, another comment or question came to my mind in looking at the parking and following up with Councilwoman Albert's comment. The Posse grounds is the limiting factor of the use to the park for parking. And we probably need to stipulate that somehow in these rules or regulations that park in designated areas only, because we don't, the overflow parking is not going to be south, whatever we're calling that road right now.
Old Fort Road.
Old Fort.
Yeah, it's not what is on there, people. They're going to turn the corner and just on the bottom right-hand corner of that drawing, you see a road that goes into that new subdivision. People are more than likely going to park right in front of, it's a public street, so they're going to park right in front of those houses and they're going to walk around the corner, and that's how they're going to enter into, and you're going to have a lot of complaints from those people in the homeowners area. So I think that's very, very important that they park in the designated areas only. And if it's full, it's full. Then no more use in that park. Now people might walk their animals down there from other places, which is fine. That's another controlling measure, but we need to look at that parking a little bit tighter.
Okay. I see hands up, but did one of you want to talk again? Councilwoman Alberts, did you have another comment? Oh,
No,
hold
sorry.
hold on just a second. Okay, Mark Larson has a comment. Can't hear you, Mark.
Oh,
Are you in-
can you hear me now?
There we go. Yep.
Okay. Somebody had me muted. In my never be humble opinion, I think we're making way too much out of this. I mean, it's another part. The other one was handled great. If there is a problem, we'll handle it. We don't have, all of our other parks are used for storm ponds. We don't do anything special. I mean, we've never had mass gatherings at any other parks. I mean, if we have 10,000 people down, then we may have to limit it, but I think we're just getting way out ahead of this and looking for something scary. The other dog park was in a park in people's backyard with no parking, and they'd used it for 10 years with nobody there, so it was kind of a painful situation for them. This one down here, I think we do need to decide who's going to monitor it. You know, is it going to be animal control? Is it going to be our code enforcement? I think we can set some rules, but, you know, so far as everything else, I think we can watch it and, you know, just kind of let it soft open and take care of most of these things. I don't know how you'd ever decide who was there, because if I had a key and I wanted to take my cousin, we'd both show up unless somebody's sitting there looking at dog tags. I just think it's not going to be, and if it is a big deal, we can hop on it then, but, you know, to try and fix something before it's broke, I don't know if we need to.
Thank you, Mark. Other comments?
So this is Quinn. I haven't added much comment. I agree with most of the things there. I don't have anything new to add. I'm supportive of the dog park, and I think there's been a lot of good discussions, things that we need to look at.
Okay. All right. There was some concerns raised. Dave, I don't know how we move forward with this. Maybe look at the concerns raised tonight and see if there's anything that we need to add. Or if we wait and see if it is a problem, like Mark Larson said, and then address those concerns, depending on the issues that we have. How does everyone feel?
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
As being on the Parks and Rec committee with Angie when we were dealing with the other dog park, we learned a lot, and I think that's where these rules came from. And I agree that there's going to be some lessons learned. I mean, I don't have a problem just opening it up with the rules we have, with adding, you know, the alcohol and a few of the other rules. And then if the things start getting out of hand, then we have to do something more. But I think if the city council is in agreement that it is a dog park, I think that was the big question tonight. And then we leave it back to the Parks and Rec committee and staff to make the rules and implement it and move forward.
Okay. Anyone else feel differently? I agree with Blair.
Her.
Thank you, Councilwoman Alberts. If that's the general consensus, then that's the direction we're going to give to Dave. Is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Dave, you've got your direction then?
Yes, we will work toward this becoming a dog park, and the Parks and Rec Committee can hammer out some of those details based on the feedback tonight. One question that wasn't asked that I thought would be asked, and we'll answer it anyway, is that Brandon has been in touch with Nilsson Homes, who's building the subdivision and who the agreement was with to grass and fence the detention basin and put the trail around it. They anticipate a late July, early August timeframe of when that is done. So that's an anticipated timeline. It's not set in stone, but that's the timeline that we'll work toward with the Parks and Rec Committee to have things in place prior to usage as a dog park.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Bless you. Councilman Alberts. All right, let's move on then. We'll move to item number 9, parking restrictions. And I'm just going to turn the time over to Dave to explain this.
Okay, I hope everybody had the chance to read through the packet information on this. It had really good information about the history of this item, how the Public Safety Committee met with some residents a number of months ago and looked at the parking along 2700 East, the frontage road specifically. And as part of that committee meeting, there was discussion of having staff look at more of a citywide philosophical systematic approach to parking restrictions. So with that being the case, the packet outlines the current parking restrictions for on-street parking that are in place within the city, highlights some of the areas that we received complaints about, and perhaps some of the reasons why we received complaints on those areas. There's really 2 main areas that we received complaints about, and that's in front of Highmark Charter School. And then just recently, we've been receiving complaints at Cottonwood Drive there at the trailhead as people are more out and about using trails right now during the COVID situation. And so those are 2 location specific. There is one parking issue that we received complaints on that's not location specific, and that has to deal with trailers being parked out in the street for extended periods of time. Our city code right now identifies 48 hours as the limit. There are options around all 3 of those issues, I think. And we highlight within the packet some of the options there. With Highmark, we feel like as staff, we need to keep working with Highmark and maybe elevate our desires there if the council so chooses to elevate that status to more of an urgent issue and try to do something there. We've talked through whether red striping, red curbing was an answer there or not. As far as Cottonwood Drive, it's obviously not illegal at this point to park on the sides of the street. That's the idea of red curbing, is that if we feel the need, we would make it illegal. And then the 48 hours is the idea from staff is to make that a 24-hour limit rather than a 48-hour limit. And that's simply a code enforcement issue and would be easier to enforce at 24 hours than at 48 hours. I'm not sure if we need to get into the specifics of any of those areas necessarily tonight, but based on what we've received in terms of complaints, and then looking at this from a citywide perspective, the next thing that's in the memo or in the packet, there's also a recognition of different evaluation criteria that could be used to evaluate whether there needs to be red curbing or no parking signs, some type of restriction for parking, sight distances, and things like that. And then in the end, the staff's recommendation essentially is that parking restrictions really are a case-by-case basis where there's a need based on those evaluation criteria. And as it relates to 2700 East, which was a little bit of a trigger for this conversation, in its current status, without development there on 2700 East, there's not a need to red stripe or to restrict parking. However, when development goes in, there may be a need. There may not be a need. But at that point, they evaluate the need based on the criteria established. So from a staff perspective, there are parking considerations, but there's not any specific glaring area where we feel like red striping is the answer right now. But we do think that there's some evaluation criteria that could be used on a case-by-case basis that the council could have in their back pocket when the need arises.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Are there comments or questions? Yes, Councilman Soderquist.
So I have a couple questions. First of all, on the large trailer parking in the last portion of your recommendation, did you just say change all vehicle parking from 48 to 24? That's just large trailers, correct? You're not changing every vehicle to 24 hours?
Well, the code specifically does not, if I remember right, does not specify large trailers. It just restricts the parking. I'm looking at it.
Large vehicles.
Yes, that's right. It doesn't say trailers specifically. It says large vehicles.
Okay, and we don't define what a large vehicle is?
It does. It says large vehicles which are more than 35 feet in length, 8 feet in width, or heavier than 24,000 pounds.
All right.
So,
Thanks for that.
and Chris, maybe you could weigh in on the complaints that you receive. That might be helpful for the council to know what types of complaints you get.
Yeah, there's been a lot of complaints on like small utility trailers, boat trailers, all those kinds of things fit underneath of what the specifications of what our code stipulates. So that's why if it's any large vehicle, I would just like to, it's a lot easier to enforce with 24 hours instead of 48 hours. So that's kind of why I brought it up to city staff when we were talking about it.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the size of the vehicle. If it meant every single car, then we may have some concerns with
Nope.
that.
No, just it's really a safety matter. Not being able to see around vehicles, whether it's on a corner, whether it's even in front of your house, or somebody backing out of their driveway might not be able to see. We've had several complaints down on Canyon Meadows area, a lot of complaints up on View Drive, constant matters that could actually just save time in enforcement if we just changed our wording just a little bit.
Okay, I'm good with that. Second question I have is just relative to Highmark and the Lofts development. First question is, did Highmark plan on having people park out along the state road? And secondly, are the Lofts planning on people being able to park on 2700? Because if they start from the very beginning knowing that they can't park on 2700, then they should approach their development better. But if that is left open to them, I'm sure they're going to plan on it. And
no, the code is very specific in the requirements of off-street parking for developments. So the loft specifically is not allowed to plan on any on-street parking.
All right, so my concern is we didn't have that spelled out for Highmark. It's become an issue. We're just going to have a repeat if we don't do anything on 2700.
No, it was spelled out, actually. It was agreed to, it was talked about, it was discussed multiple times, our concerns about parking problems at Highmark. And what you see now is what we were concerned would happen. But it's not a problem that's easily solved.
Right, and I guess that's my comment. If we don't do something on 2700, we're going to run into a similar situation where it will be hard to solve it after the fact, after everybody's gotten used to it.
And those two situations are a little bit different. The lofts is you've got a residential element, people just parking there because they live there. You've got some commercial element to it. You do at this point have they're proposing a daycare, and so there is kind of an element to drop off and pick up. But the major problem with Highmark is the drop off and pick up. And the plan originally proposed was that all of the vehicles would serpentine through the parking lot up to the pickup area. And none of the parents want to do that because they, and I don't blame them because I would probably be similar. But it's just a lot easier to park along the road, let your child come out, pick them up, and then leave, versus serpentine through the parking lot. You have to wait through that whole long line to pick up your child before you can leave. And so the Highmark situation, I think, is a little bit more difficult to tackle. The lofts, all I can say is that the requirements that they have to follow don't allow for them to plan on any on-street parking. So I guess we don't know yet if that will develop into a problem or not, for sure.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Councilman Halverson, then Councilwoman Alberts.
I know it was brought to my attention, Haley brought it back to my attention as part of the Public Safety Committee. I was the one that requested it to be back on the agenda. I do think 2700, we agreed in our committee meeting, it was quite some time ago, that 2700 should be painted. And it was agreed upon and it was done. That was a done deal. We just wanted to go through other areas in the city that needed to be done as well. I mean, I don't care what you say to a developer. If they're getting 2 spots, counting their garage or whatever it is at the lofts, there will be on-street parking, and 2700 will not accommodate the on-street parking. So we just decided in that committee meeting that we should paint it now so that it doesn't become an argument later on, like we have the problem with Highmark now. So that if it's painted, it's forced and it's done. And I think it needs to be done. I do think Cottonwood Drive, we can do some signage and some other things. I think that's another issue, that it's a nuisance to the neighbors. I think we need to accommodate the neighbors. Those are our residents that are doing it. It's not really our residents that are parking in their driveway. It's people from elsewhere. So I think there's some signage we should be putting up over there as well. And then I think we discussed, Brandon, and I think there was 3 or 4 areas that we discussed during our committee meeting. And I was hoping maybe we could mark those on a plan for tonight, but where those spots were in the city. But I know we discussed and said, let's do that, and come spring, we'll get a bid to do it and get it done. I know there's people that have volunteered to do it, but I don't, if we're going to do it, let's get it done. I don't think it's a big expense. I don't think it's that big a deal. But 2700 should be the first one on our priority list.
Councilwoman Alberts.
Yeah, Blair just wrapped it up for me pretty well. I was kind of confused why there wasn't a recommendation to paint both sides of 2700, because that's the intention, or that's the assumption I left with, was that it was decided that parking on either side of the street was a concern. So I agree with Blair. We need to get that one. Is it red strip or red stripe? I always say it wrong, regardless of what it is.
It's just restricted parking.
Well, but to curb, anyway, paint the curb red. We need to do
Yes.
that like ASAP, I believe. And then the other thing, I appreciate, Quinn, you bringing up your concerns with the trailer, because I felt the same way. I was wondering kind of we need a little bit more clarification on dropping that down. And Chris, I was going to ask you, I think you already said that, but that's another issue I've seen a lot on Canyon Meadows, is a lot of trailers just parked there, which there's already some speeding going on that. So it's kind of causing a double concern, in my opinion. Is that something that you're seeing as well?
Yes, there was 7 dumpsters and 13 trailers in the city, but half of those were in Canyon Meadows.
Okay. So would this new verbiage that we're putting in here keep the dumpsters off as well? Would that?
Yes, the dumpsters turns into a little bit of an issue whenever the company's going to drop off a dumpster and then pick up the old one at a house. They leave it on the street, and then I have to tell them again to come back out and move it back up off of the site, off of the street, back into the property a little bit.
Okay. Okay. And then, yeah, I agree with Blair as well on Cottonwood Drive. We can't paint the curb because it doesn't have a curb, but some signage of some sort, whether that's parking on only one side of the street, or I'm not sure what we should do there, but I think maybe the Public Safety Committee could meet again and kind of discuss those areas where we have concern. But I think that both sides, east and west side of 2700 west should be, is it east? 2700 east should be painted ASAP.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Petty.
So on this item number 8, where it says large vehicles and loads, and it talks about large vehicles, could we potentially just put the verbiage in there that says specifically trailers, RVs, you know, for example, or add them into there, so then there's not this question, well, my boat's technically not 35 feet long with the trailer, but it's still a nuisance. Is that something we can add in?
Chris?
That would,
I think
that
that
would
when it
work.
comes to the on-street parking for trailers and stuff like that, that will take an actual code text change. And so we can bring forward a recommendation of the wording for that, but it would take an actual code change. And so that would have to come forward as a specific item to the city council as an action item to change the city code wording. So staff can put together some wording options there and bring that forward to the council.
Okay, I would recommend we do that, and that would make it easier for Chris for any enforcement. And then that would, the 24-hour change, would that also come forward in the same motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
As far as Cottonwood Drive goes, fix this like a month ago. We've got to figure out something to do that. So I love the idea of taking that back to the Public Safety Committee. And 2700, I recall that that was recommended to be painted red striped or stripped. If we
Which
follow
one is it?
This is right.
It's striped.
Well, I don't know. You paint it red. Just paint it red.
We'll paint the curbs red, and I feel like we should do that as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Petty. Are there any other comments?
Do it. I guess just so we did have the volunteers willing to do it. Do we want to have them do it? Do we want to have public safety go ahead and take over that, or not? Public Works take over that.
Can I ask, how often does a curb need to be repainted? Does anyone know?
Where'd Mark go?
He sent me a chat saying, see you tomorrow. So he dropped off the phone.
I would make the recommendation that we have it done professionally first. And then if it ever needs to be repainted, that we call on our volunteers to repaint it. That's much easier than starting off painting it right on the curb.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Nobody has any answers on how often that a curb needs to be repainted.
When it,
I
we
would
just-
say when it needs to be repainted.
I just
Can't
don't
tell
know
the
how
color
long that industrial paint lasts. I was just curious because I just don't, I mean, right now, yeah, I agree. I would like to have it painted by the time we get the lofts up there and some of these other businesses. But right now there's no one parking along there. And so, you know, are we going to paint it and need to repaint and repaint before we even have anything over there or a use for it? To me, that
I repaint my parking lots every 3 years.
oh,
Whether
really?
that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's what we restripe our parking lots for, our curbs and our no parking or our yellow zones every 3 years.
Okay, well, if it does last that long, then I can see that working. It just seems to me like a waste right now since there's nobody parks over there. But if that's what the council feels like we need to do, then
Yeah, we need to do that. It's not a waste. The paint, it's the same paint you put on fire hydrants. It lasts 3 to 5 years. Get the paint on there, set the standard now. So when the development comes in, there's no question as to what the city expects.
Does that come out of the streets budget?
No, it comes out of the parks budget.
Parks and
Oh, I
Rec.
knew you were gonna say
oh,
that. No.
Yes.
where does that?
the streets.
Streets? So could that be used as part of the TUF for maintenance?
I don't think so. We'd have to look into that, but I doubt that that would fall under maintenance.
Okay. All right. It seems like the council is in unison on that. So do you have your direction, Dave, as far as?
Yes, what I heard was to get 2700 East, both sides of the road painted as soon as possible, to look at signage for Cottonwood Drive, and then put together code text amendment language to bring back for on-street parking to 48 hours.
Okay, the
Just-
signage on Cottonwood Drive, is that something that needs to go to committee to determine how that will look before? Or do we just put up no parking signs on one side of the road? Is that, how does the council feel about that?
I think that warrants a little bit further discussion. My personal opinion, I would give it to the committee.
Yeah, and we could even maybe make it part of when we resurface that road, it could be part of that project.
Give it back to the committee. We'll handle it.
Wayne will handle it.
No, Blair will handle it. I'll just be there.
Blair will handle it.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I do have one question here on when
Yes.
Dave's going to paint 2700, you have some people's yard fronts that are on 2700. How far up are you going?
The Public Safety Committee conversation previously was up to, what is it?
You're,
Up to Deer Run Drive? Okay. So not entirely all the way up to 8100 or whatever that road is clear up there.
no.
All right,
Correct.
thank you.
That's good clarification. That had been talked about, but yeah, that's good clarification up to Deal Run.
okay. Do we have our direction then? Committee meeting on the Cottonwood Drive. All right. Next item, I'm going to do the two together, the renewal of law enforcement agreement with Davis County Sheriff's Office and the renewal of the dispatch agreement with Davis County. South Weber entered into an agreement for both law enforcement and dispatch services with Davis County. What on earth?
It's Taylor Swift. She's chummy with me.
Nice, Haley. Okay. And dispatch services with Davis County on July 1st, 2019. Those contracts will expire June 30th, 2020. Law enforcement includes an option to renew for 2 additional years by providing a notice in writing to the Davis County Sheriff's Office 30 days prior to expiration. Dispatch requires a written amendment to the original contract. Staff feels like the city is receiving the desired benefit for which these agreements were originally intended and feels renewal is warranted. Are there comments or questions from the council? Okay,
I have a question. I just can't figure out how to read my hand.
okay.
So is the contract rate staying the same then? Or is the price the same?
Dave,
With the Davis County Sheriff's Office, when we negotiated that contract, the provision was that if we wanted the rate to stay the same, for the next few years, we could do that. So it was a 1-year contract with the city's ability to renew it at the same rate for an additional 2 years. With the dispatch agreement, it's not specifically stated. We would have to approach them and say, we're interested in amending the agreement and continuing on, and that perhaps could become a negotiation.
Okay.
other questions? Okay, does it need a formal vote, Dave, or can we just give direction to renew?
You can just give direction to renew. Staff will work on the drafting the letter to Davis County Sheriff's Office to renew that one. All it takes is a letter, but for the dispatch, we'll work with them to get an amended contract that would actually come before the city council in another meeting as an action item.
Okay. All right, then are we in agreement that we would like to renew both of these?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. It looks like we're good to go, Dave.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, next is new business. I have one thing. I got a call from Diana Heyer, and she's planning with the community an idea to lift the spirits of the residents of Peterson's Farm Assisted Living. The community is having a drive-by parade to show our love to them, and that would be on May 4th. They're meeting at Canyon Meadows Park at 1 p.m. to line up vehicles, and would like you, if you want to decorate the passenger side of your vehicle with signs that say "We love you" or whatever you want to say to boost their morale there. That's a hard situation for them to be in right now. So I think this is an awesome idea. And also wondered, Dave, if you could put it out on social media for the community, because everyone's welcome to participate.
You bet.
Okay,
Mayor,
All right.
did you say it's May 4th?
May 4th. Yeah, that would be,
Okay.
is that Monday?
Yeah, it's just next Monday.
Yeah,
Is there-
next Monday.
Is there a time on that?
So
Sorry.
at 1 p.m., they're meeting at Canyon Meadows Park to line up. So, and I think they're gonna start it at 1:30.
Do you know why they're trying it so early? I mean,
In
graduation
the,
like 3 weeks before school really ends.
oh no, this is for Peterson's Park is Peterson's Farms Assisted Living.
Oh,
So
I'm
the
sorry.
old folks, the
I
old
thought you
folks.
said
home.
graduation
Early,
drive.
Quinn. Not
Okay.
They've already
No.
graduated.
Different set of seniors, huh?
Long time ago. My
A few
bad.
years ago, right? No, they are planning one of those as well, but this is a different one. So, yeah. Is there other new business? Okay, hearing none, we will move to council and staff reports. So I will begin. Saturday in a meeting with Dave Larson and Curtis Brown. Oh, I sat in a meeting with them yesterday, Curtis Brown and Dave Larson, to discuss measures necessary if Governor Herbert allows rec centers to open. Some of the things we looked at is our 10-foot social distancing, patrons must wear masks, limit the number of patrons allowed in one room at a time. These are some of the things that we brought up. Of course, the rec center is not open yet, but we're preparing for the time when it does reopen. So those are some things that we're looking at. And that's all I have to report. So we will begin with Councilman Halverson.
I don't have anything to report.
Okay, and then Councilwoman Alberts.
Yeah, I got one more. Oh, crap. Flip, there she is.
Nice.
There we go. My last one for the night. Yeah, I met with Country Fair Days. We had a meeting sometime recently. I can't remember my days right now. So they are planning on moving forward with what they can, but they need to have a definitive answer from the state or whatever about being able to have large public gatherings by June 1st. That's kind of their make it or break it day. So if they aren't clear on those gathering numbers by June 1st, they don't feel that they have the ability to get everything together should that change. So if that is the case where we don't have further clarification, then Country Fair Days will be modified to some degree, whether that's some sort of social distancing parade or I don't, fireworks only. I'm not sure, but so that is where they're sitting at for now. And then I just meant to say this in during new business, but can we meet at City Hall next meeting? Can this be our last Zoom meeting, or do we have to keep doing this?
Dave, what do you think?
I think that we need to continue doing this until we receive further direction. That's my feeling.
What if we're under, sorry, Ann.
Whose call is that?
What if we're under 10 people? Like, if it's just city staff and we're able to stream it to the public, but we can be at City Hall, that's 10, that's under 10. I don't know. Is it just Angie and I that want to get back together again?
I would think that as long as it's, we're limiting the number of people in there, I think we'd be fine meeting. If we're going to a different regulation by the governor, but it's really the mayor's call. We'll do whatever you want. I think we can social distance as long as, but we'd have to be able to stream it for sure.
Yeah. I figured, I don't know if we're there yet, Dave, or not, but
Where are we on that, Dave? I know Mark was saying that the sound guy was coming.
Right. So we've been working hard to try to get things in place. The live streaming through Zoom is very self-explanatory and very simple and straightforward. The live streaming when we're all in the same room with microphone system the way it is just a different animal. So we're not quite there yet. We are working hard to get there. We've had a review of our audio system just within the last couple of days, and they're going to be providing some recommendations on what we would need to do to get our audio system in position to stream. We do have some options. None of them are directly in place at this time. Mac, did you have more to explain on that?
No, I'm expecting within the next couple of days, looking at our sound system. They've looked at it. We wanted to have a system that would give us more microphones, more than we have the capability of just the 6 we have now, so that everybody is mic'd, so that it would could all be, the recording and the live streaming would be off microphones and not just off a general mic. We're looking at the wiring that would be needed and everything, all the pieces. We hope within a week to have that all put together. But if you were to have your next meeting at City Hall, we would not have that, the permanent solution that we want in place. We could do just something like what's being done by the private individual in the past, but a more permanent solution to live streaming wouldn't be available that fast. It's been trying to get people out because people are still social distancing and trying to get people to come and see everything. But we hope to have it within a week or so.
Okay, thank you. Mark, I think that is going to be the main driver. I know putting our computers in the same room altogether does not work. The sound goes haywire. So I think we just get that done as quickly as we can. And that will kind of be the driver as to whether we go back.
Well, our goal is to have that ready to go as soon as we have the go ahead to do that. So it's kind of a 2-part in my mind, the governor's relaxing the restrictions as well as us having the capability to still have the public involvement at the level that we want.
Right. And we would definitely need to sit 6 feet apart. I think, we would have to practice the social distancing, but yes, the governor's directive would also be an element of that. So, all right. Anything else, Haley?
No, but I think Angie raised her hand.
Did you have a comment?
I feel like you can see this. Yes. Can we please not call it social distancing and call it like physical distancing or just don't touch each other kind of thing? I can't take more.
You come up with a better term and I
Distance
would.
is not a verb, just so you know. That's in proper grammar.
See there, we shouldn't even say it at all.
are our desks even 6 feet apart?
No, they're not. And so we'd probably have to like have part of the council sit in front or something. I don't know. We could
Well,
figure
it
out.
goes- But it doesn't just go sideways. I mean, it goes front and back. Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, I'm just thinking they would have to be 6 feet in front of us.
Right. And then when Blair
We have to
sneezes,
get them on the
it would
count,
be out.
the camera. This is just infuriating. That's what I'm saying.
It is. It's a difficult situation. It is. And Angie, if you come up with a better term, I will use it.
Okay, I'll do it. I'm doing it.
Okay. All right.
That's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Alberts. Councilman Soderquist.
I don't have any updates. I do have a comment on the distance discussion. With masks, have they said anything about being closer?
No,
Because I know they're talking about, my company's making masks for the state. And they're talking about potentially, school starting up with kids wearing masks. They're going to be sitting closer to each other. So that 6-foot thing might drop to something less.
The CDC recommends that's when you wear the mask, is when you can't
6
avoid.
foot, stay with the mask. Okay.
yeah, that's what I heard too. Oh,
All right, that's all. Thanks.
all right. Councilwoman Petty.
No, I have nothing to report. Sorry, I was trying to think of some snarky comment. I kind of
I can't believe you were at a loss for words.
Did you guys lose me?
Okay.
Sorry. I don't know what you heard. I must have lost my internet for a second, but
We didn't hear nothing.
nothing.
No,
I just said this. The
and that's the
CD
way we like it, Blair.
Okay, I just said the CDC recommends that's when you wear a mask, is when you're within
Yes.
6 feet. So,
Oh, we heard that and we
We
ignored
did.
it.
We did.
and Angie, you ignore most of what I say.
I know.
Hmm.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Windsor, did you have anything?
Oh, I had a lot of snarky comments, but I'm going to withhold them because they're not appropriate. Masks, they don't do a bleep thing unless it's an N95 mask. So
Preach it.
anyway, I'm not going there. The only business I have is the Municipal Utilities Committee meeting has been asked to meet tomorrow at 2:30 to go over a draft agreement with the Job Corps on the pipeline project on the east side. So we'll be taking a look at that tomorrow. I don't know what is going to come of it. We'll report that back at the next council meeting.
All right.
Snarky,
Thank you.
snarky, and snarky. So
Thank you. All right, Dave Larson.
That devolved pretty quickly, didn't it? No, I don't have any additional things to report. However, I would like to explain what we need to do when we get into the closed session at the end of the meeting here. We will remain on the call and stop the live stream. And so we will then proceed with the closed session. And then at the end, we will restart the live stream for when we go back into open session to then close the meeting. So we will just remain on the line. Don't do anything to leave the meeting when we go into closed session.
Okay. Thank you. Brandon, did you have anything more?
Old Fort Road got paved, and
Woohoo.
the remainder of that did, and anticipate striping coming next week. They'll do the concrete collars on the utilities, and then it will be. We anticipate kind of wrapping things up here in the next couple of weeks.
Hallelujah. Thank you.
Hallelujah.
All right.
That's all I have. Thanks,
That's
Mayor.
it. Okay, Mark, did you have anything, Mark McCray?
I haven't got anything for tonight.
Okay. What about Lisa?
I would just like to remind you and Michelle to come by the office tomorrow to sign the minutes.
Okay. Thank you. And Michelle?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. All right. Then if there is no more comment, I will now entertain a motion to go into a closed session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property per Utah Code 52-4-2051D.
So moved.
Second,
Okay. Second is Councilman Windsor, was that? Okay.
yes,
All in favor, say aye.
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 You're so excited. Any opposed? Okay, we will now move to a closed session.